Warning. Warning. Warning.
Okay, let's run.
What's up? Hey, I am Largo. This is the lair most of the time, and it's freaking hot here. It's muggy, so I'm cranky. But we're going to have a show, and it's Tuesday, so we're kind of off schedule, but I don't care. We're here. You're here. I'm here. So that makes it our time, and it's our time to grind because, we can. So let's get this thing going. Where's the button? There? Nope. There. One of these. Just don't hit the red button. That
one. Okay, brothers and sisters and misses and misters, here's your daddy-o with the sounds to go. No shucking, no jiving. I'm telling you, your music's arriving.
Grind.
I am expecting this to be quite a fun show tonight. How about you, Will?
Grind.
I think his record is stuck in the groove. Let's say hi to the chat before we bring in our illustrious guest, Johnny Sorensen.
Oh, yeah.
He's got some new stuff coming on the horizon with his YouTubes. So keep an eye out for what Johnny's working on. See what Rock is cooking. And weird. Bill. Fantastic. Toy Adventures. Good to see you, sir.
And a happy birthday to Paula.
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday to Paula, too. That's right. So it looks like Mr. Salzberg is going to be working, but he'll be listening.
Jimmy Salts.
Brick's going to catch us on the flip side. It's cool. We'll catch you on the replay. Yes. The soothing sounds of Grindcore. Grindcore and more. Yes. And yes, there is something about the myocardial infraction or infarction. Yeah. Something to do with the Grindhead's illustrious music career. We'll let him explain that. And what's Mr. Salzberg saying here? Biggest problem I have is I'm 30% deaf due to heavy metal, helos, and gunfire.
Well, in that case, hello, Salzberg.
The Epic Badger is in the house. Unfortunately, the Mad Badger couldn't make it, but the Epic one is here, which is cool.
Always good.
Loving that.
Epic Badger.
So, all right. I think that has about got us caught up with all the kids in the house. And there's James from Ratface44 Reviews. Good to see you.
How's it going?
All right. So, and Nolan's here. Hi, Nolan.
Hey, Nolan. How are you?
Cool. So he'll be listening on the ride home. Well, we'll do our best to keep it an entertaining cruise. So, without further ado, let's introduce the Grindhead.
Greetings, your grindness. All hail the Grindhead.
It's good to see everybody. It's always good to be in the company of you fine gentlemen. I'm glad to be back in the lair, man. Thanks for having me.
You are more than welcome here. We always have fun hanging out with you, usually offline, but we'll try to keep it civil since people are listening. And we do tend to try to scurry the kids out, but sometimes they pop in. So
hide your wife, hide your kids. Grindhead's here.
Hide your kids, hide your wife.
Indeed. So, and I know, and they know that you're into grindcore, but you're a multifaceted kind of gem, like a diamond.
I am.
He is.
I am.
And we shall see what's going on with this playlist. What's Goji saying here? Excited to meet tonight's guest. Yeah, it's Laserface. No, Grindface. No, what's it? I don't know. That guy.
No respect. Can't believe it.
No respect.
Listen to a rug.
So we just got through watching the toy grinds for this week, which was very cool. But now I'm feeling like we're going to be I'm always going to be like a day off because I feel like today's Monday. So
yeah,
I'm discombobulated, but
sorry.
It's all right. It's fine. Let us see what our guest has brought in his music dossier.
In the immortal words of the Gojitron, brothers and sisters, let us grind.
Indeed.
A wise man once said that. It was a couple minutes ago.
Yeah, that guy right there.
Oh, yeah, that's where I heard it.
So, it was an interesting playlist, to be sure, and I was pretty impressed. There's a lot of stuff here that I really am digging, and some new favorites that I didn't know about, and a few that it was a challenge. Not my cup of tea, but what I did is I went through and I read the lyrics. And looking at it from the lyrical point of view, I have a totally new respect for a lot of these musicians. So on that premise, let's go forward. And this one, everybody can agree. Queen is the shiznit. They are awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. And this one, people ask me what my favorite band is, and I always say it's tied. Queen and Napalm Death. I think the Napalm Death, as everyone knows. I'm wearing a Napalm Death shirt right now. My water flask has Napalm Death on it. Like it grindcore, grindhead, like duh. A lot of people forget that Queen is tied my favorite band, because I've always said if I have those two bands on a desert island, I'm good. But this particular song that we have on the screen here, aside from the great information that's here, where I actually heard it the first time was on the Iron Eagle soundtrack. And
that's right.
I still have a copy of that on cassette. I still have an original pressing of that on CD.
Interesting.
It's one of my favorite rainy day movies. Like if there's like, if I'm bored, what do I want? Iron Eagle is something I'll reach out for a lot. And I remember the scene where the song is coming on, there's like this has this kind of keyboard synth driven orchestral beginning, and because the film that it's in has Basil Poradoris as an actual conductor, and he made the score. I didn't realize that was actually the beginning of the Queen song. I thought the song started was I thought that's when it started. Nope, it was this whole thing, and that really, for whatever reason, maybe it was the way that the time signature works or the way the scene was cut. It was clear that there was a meshing of the song itself, whereas a lot of pop and rock in film doesn't always have that audio visual linkage where you've got the rhythm dictating cuts. But that particular one, and a lot of the songs in that film, they really took advantage of the music dictating the edits and the cuts. So it was really cool. So as a kid, I heard that. I had heard them on the Flash Gordon soundtrack, but I was too young to realize what I was listening to. Then I went back to Flash Gordon. I went, oh, is this the same? There's no way this is the same band. Like, I thought I'd discovered some secret with Queen. And I went to a record store to buy just a Queen album, thinking there was this underground thing that I was discovering. And I went, do you have any Queen albums? The guy says, yeah, they're over here. And there was it was a whole row of them. Like, oh, yeah, what am I doing? And
for me, I think it was the movie Highlander where I was first introduced to Queen, and A Kind of Magic was pretty much all the hits from that film. Yeah. And so for me, One Vision and might be my Swiss cheese memory, but I think this played in the background with the Vigilante, the guy with the Uzis who comes across the Kurgan, is playing on the radio in his car. So I think that might have been where I first heard it. I don't know if it was this one.
When the Kurgan was in his car, he was listening to Give Me the Prize.
Yes. No, before that, though, the guy, the Nam vet who confronts him when he's fighting in the alley. I think that's where I heard it. But I'm pretty sure. Could be wrong. And Goji's given us the quintessential Flash.
Go, Flash, go.
In one of my favorite Queen documentaries, as there are several, when Brian May talks about how to play the opening Flash, boom, you play that piano part, Flash, boom, you just hit like the whole thing. That's how he got it to do it.
That's great. Well, I when I saw this on the playlist, I listened to it. I couldn't recall hearing the song before. So one, it was great to hear a Queen song that wasn't, isn't one of the most popular songs, like to hear something and to really enjoy it. But the vibe I was getting the whole time while I was listening to it was like 80s movie montage. So when you said Iron Eagle, I was like, yes, I probably have heard this before, because that's exactly how I felt like driving around.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Like, and I was in an 80s movie doing, ordinary chores.
Exactly.
Ordinary chore montage. It was great.
Yeah.
But I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Melvor thinks you're a closet Enya fan, and whether that's true or not, I cannot confirm.
He can suck it. He can suck it.
You sure you don't listen to Secret?
No, I'm pretty sure I don't. No. Because without spoiling anything, as you folks will see as this playlist unloads, I'm not leaving anything hidden here. And, yes, is the majority of my massive CD collection hardcore, death metal, grind, punk? Yes. But I have a lot of other stuff in there too, so jog on.
Layers, like an onion, like an ogre.
Or an ogre.
Wayne's World. Yes, Wayne's World had some good tunes in it too.
Sure did.
So we all agree Queen is groovy, but I got to ask. I say, what the fried chicken is this grindcore business? Explain it to the kids, because some of us, we're not real familiar with the origins of grindcore and why it is a very popular genre. So I asked the kaiju to explain it for us. I'll read what I was able to glean, and then you can correct it for me if you will.
Sure.
So, according to certain kaiju, grindcore is an extreme fusion genre of heavy metal and hardcore punk that originated in the mid 1980s, drawing inspiration from abrasive sounding music styles such as thrashcore, crust punk, hard metal punk, extreme metal, and industrial. Agree or disagree?
Mostly agree. Although some of the subgenres listed didn't exist when grindcore was formed. So basically, you had the punk movement in the late 70s going in the early 80s. And there's a lot of kids that listened to like the Ramones and that kind of stuff and loved what they heard, could not play well enough to get to that level. And also had grown up on regular rock or whatever. And so they stripped punk down to its bare bones, the bare minimum, just the core of it, and then did it faster with louder messages, louder tones and everything. And that became hardcore punk, then later just hardcore. By this time, you've got Metallica had come out. Slayer was on the horizon. Megadeth was on the horizon. Iron Maiden was getting bigger. So people were listening to that. Hardcore comes out, and it became a crossover scene where you had thrash and hardcore coming together. And you added like the British element to it, which had a lot more of a Noel Coward kind of a dry humor to the lyrics, a lot of more political stance and so forth. Bands like Siege, bands like Discharge. And someone said, I love this, but I want to go faster. And Napalm Death was the progenitor of this, including progenitors of the term. Shane Embury, the current bass player since the second record officially, but was live prior to that. He coined that term, and the idea behind it has always been everything faster than everything else, short songs to the point, But there's most of what grindcore was originally intended to be was almost always politically driven, or at least always out to say something that no one else wants to say, or you couldn't get away with saying, if you sing like this, and the blast beat, of course, being the rudiment of grindcore, which is everything, kick, ride, snare, or hi-hat, all doing, at the same time. And
the patented grindcore machine gun drumming, as we say, the 50 cal.
Yes.
To me, grindcore is synonymous with napalm and vice versa, because maybe that's because that's what you first introduced me to. But when I look at the history of grindcore, it's napalm death, and
generally regarded. Although they're just because there's purists out there, I got to get this out of the way. Repulsion in the U.S. were the first ones to do it. They're an influence on napalm. Napalm are the ones to take it a bit further, for longer and more mainstream. I'll digress.
I would go so far as to say napalm is the most highly respected of the progenitors of grindcore.
I would say,
and of course, a major trait of grindcore is the micro song, short, short, fast, to the point, which is very much from its punk roots. This I did not know until I did some research for our show today. Napalm Death holds the Guinness World Record for shortest song ever recorded, with the 1 second "You Suffer" in 1987. Their debut album, Scum. I think a lot of people are very familiar with this cover for the album, and it's even been made into an action figure by that company I'm not crazy about. But
and as a real treat for the audience, Jim has agreed to do a karaoke version of "You Suffer."
Sure.
Yeah.
Summer what? That's the whole song. So,
Encore. Grindcore is considered a more noise-filled style of hardcore punk while using hardcore's trademark characteristics such as heavily distorted, down-tuned guitars, grinding overdriven bass, high-speed tempo, blast beats, and vocals which consist of growls, shouts, and high-pitched shrieks. Early groups like Napalm Death are credited with laying the groundwork for the style. It is most prevalent today in North America and Europe, with popular contributors such as Brutal Truth and Nasum. Nasum, thank you. Lyrical themes range from a primary focus on social and political concerns to gory subject matter and black humor. I definitely enjoyed the black humor of some of these bands.
So, hey, Grindhead, if you have to correct something, instead of saying actually, could you do like a Grindhead version of it, like
Oh, actually, yeah, sure, sure. I guess that won't get annoying at all.
No, not at all. Now, this is a group shot of Napalm Death. I'm not sure which particular version of Napalm Death because they've gone through some changes.
Yeah, this would be the lineup of the band probably around Apex Predator, because they were definitively a 4-piece at that point. But the guys you see here that are in the band have been in the band since around 1991. With the only member that hadn't been in there like before being the drummer. They were a 5-piece for a very long time. Jesse Pintado was their second guitar player. Died tragically in the early 2000s, and they have not replaced the second guitar player. Mitch, the guitar player currently himself, has been on hiatus due to taking care of his family. They have another guitar player that's in there live, teetering on being an official member, but it's not been there yet. My dream is to see Mitch come back and then be a 5-piece again, but that's a whole other freaking podcast.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's kind of like that old philosophical question. It's like, if you replace every piece of a ship, is it still the original ship or is it a new ship? Are there any original members of Napalm Death that are still involved with the band? Yeah. Nope. So it's like, it's still Napalm Death, but it's not the original Napalm Death.
No.
So how much has the flavor changed?
A lot, but it has changed throughout the years. So you have like the original lineup, and then that lineup changed from one side of Scum to the second side of Scum. On the same album, you have 2 lineups. Then you have the second full-length record, which is more the solidification of the second side of Scum. Then they changed some guys again. Then they changed some guys again. And then you more or less have what we have now going in,
are there different
plus years
camps of people who prefer this lineup?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's some of that. Not as much as, like, say, your Van Halen, Van Hagar haters. That's not as much of that. The most I would say maligned Napalm Death records are the ones from like 94 to 97, 98. Those, they went a bit into like the industrial territory without totally losing where they came from. But, and this is where I kind of had the philosophy for all music. Like, look, each album is its own thing. When they play live, they're going to play old stuff. They're going to play new stuff. It should blend together nicely, because if every album sounded like Scum, I don't think we'd be talking about Napalm Death today. I really don't. And they always push things forward, and they always inspired people at some stage. But then in 99, 2000, they come back with this album called Enemy of the Music Business and blew people away. And they've largely stayed true to the original formula, but with all the lessons learned and the sonic traits of what they've been doing the last 15, 20 years. So, look, they're not going anywhere. They just released a new album barely a year and a half ago, and they're about ready to do another one. And each one offers something really cool and different. But it's indistinguishably, like, it's totally, undeniably Napalm every time.
Okay. So this song that you chose for your playlist, which variation of the band put this out? Where did the Order of the Leech kind of fit with
Order of the Leech came out in 2001, 2002. right in there. And this is like the longest standing lineup that we know today, minus Jesse. Jesse is on this, but basically from like 92 to now, it's the same guys, except for Jesse, who died. So that's this lineup. This is after the Enemy of the Music Business had come out. Like, yeah, we're gonna, because they had heard some bands that they inspired. Said, oh wait, this is still viable. I missed that. Let's go back to playing like that for a while and see how it feels. Enemy of the Music Business was great. This comes out the following year and is just like a massive slap across the face with like a cricket bat covered with spikes, broken glass, and sandpaper. It is just like, there's no denying this album is out for blood. Their anger is renewed, of course, by this point in 2001. It is 2001, 2002, so it's a post 9/11 thing. The biggest theme of this record in general is how the governments of the world were taking advantage of the war and that they had created based upon the events of 9/11. Like, they're feeding into the extremism and just how.
So, and to lower yourself has, when you look at the lyrics, I know they're a British based band. So I'm like, what was it again? Was it something particular with the prime minister, the matriarchy? What was going on when this song was written? Because they're very much against the idea that the people are not represented. They're very angry with the idea that everybody works and those in power are not listening to them.
Yeah, so at that point, you had the prime minister and the monarchy of England basically kowtowing to W. Bush's needs and essentially just licking his ass. Anything he did, England was right behind him, latched on like a leech. And the order of the leech is like, okay, it's kind of a legion or an order of the whatever, So this is meant to say, like, everyone's just latching on to what America's doing because it's an easy way to get war profiteering and political favor and all this nonsense that comes with this type of thing. You'll notice that politics tend to really do well during a time of war. So any excuse they have to go bomb some brown people, they're going to go do it. And so this song really kind of talks about the UK in particular, England in particular, and how they were just latching on to America and just kind of becoming a part of this, at least from the perspective of the songwriter.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And you definitely see with this and other songs from Napalm Death and other bands of this genre, they use their platform, their musical platform, to put a message out there. Not so much that they're overtly political, but they're just saying, look, we are of the common people. This is what's going on. This is what's in the zeitgeist. We're pissed, and we're going to talk about it. So in that, Grindcore is very illuminating to what's going on in a slice of history when you look at where the song's coming from. So as you go through the playlist, which is in the description below, I recommend checking out some of the lyrics as well.
Yes, and before we move on, this particular album and this particular song really kind of sparked me and woke me up and made some major changes in the way I was living my life at the time. And I very much would not be where I am if it weren't for this album. Like, it really just you switch on when you're a kid. I had a second switching on when I heard this album because they were mad again and I got mad again. And I looked at every aspect of my life and I said, where I find something that's not right, I'm going to change or fix it or die trying. And
now, were you actively in a band when you discovered Napalm Death, or did they inspire you to kind of get into that?
They were definitely a big part of inspiring me to get into music. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. And then going to a whole different animal, but also guys who love to sing about events and things going on with the working class. The Working Hour by Tears for Fears.
Yeah. And
great
this
band.
one, I have often said that the album on which this song appears, Songs from the Big Chair, which we'll get into, I've often said that this is the heaviest death metal album ever recorded solely with synthesizers. Because if you listen to the notation and the rhythm and what they're talking about, it's right on the edge. Like everything's right there. It's just sounds kind of chintzy.
No, I was going to say, when you look at the lyrics and at the top of the slide here, this is the working hour. We are paid by those who learn by our mistakes. You could take these lyrics, put them in a grindcore song, and it would totally fit.
Oh, yeah,
it really
for
would.
sure. And this is the first cassette tape I ever owned. Very first.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I never heard the song before, and I listened to it today as I was, bopping around, and I really enjoyed it. And I didn't make that connection, though. So now I'm kind of re-listening to it in my head and imagining them singing it like grindcore, and I'm laughing.
Well, this is also the same album that Tears for Fears had, like their big hits like Shout, and Everyone Wants to Whirl the World on it, and Head Over Heels.
Mm-hmm.
So this album was huge at the time as part of why I got the tape in the first place. But as with everything else, like my dad always taught me to get value for your money. And so when I would buy an album, I would always make sure to listen to the whole thing and listen to it over and over and over. And I would learn to appreciate Queen songs and Tears for Fears songs, Napalm songs, and whoever that other people just didn't talk about. And that's kind of a recurring theme in most of my listening habits, because I don't like to just be, Bohemian Rhapsody is great, but have you heard Dead on Time?
That is something I wish I did more of. Back in the day when you'd go and buy an album and listen to it from one song all the way through in the order in which it was produced.
Absolutely.
The way that they put the album together
is something that I think a lot of people are missing out on.
Yes.
Because those B-sides and the ones that aren't singles are usually really good songs that someone fought to put on the album and said, I want this. It has a meaning. Yeah. And I think this is one of those. It wasn't a commercially successful song for him, but it was a very personal one. Roland, how do you say his name? Orzabal?
Yeah.
He wrote this because he loved making music, but he hated the fact that he was seeing, because of their huge success, they were becoming a business, and it really pissed him off. He's a guy in his early 20s. He just wants to play music and have fun, and it's not fun anymore. Suddenly he's on tour. He has no time to himself. He's got everybody telling him what to do, what to wear, how to look, and it's just like this song came out of that frustration.
Yep. That's a perfect manifestation of that, and I think every musician goes through that once they achieve any modicum of success, because at some point it gets taken away from you. And that I always kept that in the back of my mind as my career went on. And it's an album. It was my first album that was mine. I had other cassette tapes of like Little Thinker and all this other crap, but like when it comes to like music, this is my first one. And I got it at the same time that I got my first cassette tape stereo. I had a Walkman, but now I had my own stereo, and this is the first one. And I've never abandoned this record. I've never shied away from being a Tears for Fears fan or any of these bands. And this is a really powerful record. People remember the singles. Go back and listen to the whole thing as a piece, as a unit. And there's really something cool going on here. There's a handful of bands that I will still listen to the entire record back to front. And just about everything on this list, I will do that with when they release new stuff.
This is something I did not know. I don't know if you do, Jim. The actual name for the album, Songs from the Big Chair, it was inspired by the 1976 movie Sybil with Sally Field. She plays a woman with a multiple personality disorder. And the only way she could prevent herself from slipping between the different personalities would be when she was sitting in her analyst chair. She could focus and she could talk. And that inspired Songs from the Big Chair.
Interesting.
Yeah, when I was a kid, this is pre-internet, and getting information on this stuff was a lot harder. And I was ravenous, man. Books, magazines, news articles. I was a microfiche fiend. well into high school, and all these bands that I was into, and I became kind of an almanac of musical knowledge for a while there, and people would call me like the historian for a while.
I got
Hey,
I
what was
got
that
kind of
song?
lazy. I'd read Rolling Stone and Hit Parade, and they give you the Cliff Notes version of
Oh, sure.
the band stuff. But yeah, I can appreciate going in, especially once you get fired up. When like Synchronicity with Police, that whole album, loved it. And I wanted to know more about why did they write this? Where did these inspirations come from? What the hell is Murder by Numbers? Why did they write that? And it's the same thing. It's like I wanted to know more, and it's like there's nowhere to go ask these questions, So I am very thankful that we can dig into these things a lot easier nowadays.
And I got so into it that by the time this book, an unauthorized book about Metallica, had come out, and I read it, and I did a report on it, and people thought I was just going to summarize the book, do what a normal high school book report would be, right?
Yeah.
Oh, cheers, Bill. You take care.
Good night, Bill.
It turned into actually a critique of the book. I'm like, I can tell the parts where he started to rush to meet a deadline because he got this wrong, he got this wrong, he got this wrong. And then if he wasn't content enough to get the stuff about Metallica wrong, when he's mentioning other genres and bands, he's totally screwing this up. Remember, I was just red penning this whole freaking book and just lambasting this poor guy who's just trying to make a couple bucks. But it's something where, I would sit there and be like, actually, like quiet a bit when things would happen. So
it's like that is incorrect, sir, and you are an affront to music newspapers everywhere.
Worst book report ever.
So speaking of angry songs,
yes,
wow, these guys they tried to melt my face. I had never experienced crust punk, and now I can say my crust punk cherry has been popped. Religion is a fraud. Woo, man, these guys are not pulling any punches. Very scathing critique of organized religion, particularly its role in shaping societal norms and controlling individuals through fear and punishment. The lyric suggests that religion is a means of keeping people in line, providing them with a false sense of security and purpose, which in reality it serves the interests of the church and state. While I have heard this said in other forums, never have I heard it in such an angry venue.
With excellent samples from The Exorcist as well.
Yes.
And this, I gave you this one because this has the most traditional song structure of most of the tunes on that record. And by comparison to the caustic nature of other tunes on the album, it's a bit more of a smooth palette. Okay.
Okay.
So like, yes, it's very caustic by any measure, but there's other songs that could have been shorter, but probably would have left you more shell-shocked on that record. This
it is very
is
what's the word? Discordant. That's the word that comes to mind.
Yes, and it is
on purpose.
Unrelenting, because one of the key features of Disrupt, by default, they have two vocalists, and it's not like two guitarist vocalists. They have two guys who just have mics, and then they have the rest of the band. So they're jumping around and they're just going at it. And in this song, they had a guest vocalist to make a third one, who happens to be female, and she's going, like in the background. You're like, whoa, where'd that come from? And it's like, wow. And they're just constantly just, and they're like dead serious. Like, this album is a very militant vegetarian animal rights record, and they just skewer, no pun intended, the meat industry, and vivisection and animal testing and all this stuff. So I thought
they are not fans of Ronald McDonald at all.
No, and some of my favorite T-shirts are around that concept. But if Napalm Death didn't exist, this would be one of my favorite bands. They are one of my favorite bands, but they'd be like right to the top.
Yeah.
They did one record, and that one record was enough. It's so good for what it is. It's crazy.
Well, after this, I needed a palate cleanser, and this was excellent. Chef's Kiss, new favorite. I love Gunship. Never heard of them before. I'd probably heard some of their stuff and didn't know who it was. If you like the 80s, if you're a Gen Xer like me and you love 80s films and TV shows and video games and cartoons, this band is your jam. Yeah.
So good. So good.
Yeah, Dan Haig, he is a musician, a film director. He is a video game designer. He's a writer. He's a visual effects artist. So he's not just writing the music. He's not just composing a theme. He's putting together kick-ass videos too. One of which is in the description below. I highly recommend looking at all of their back catalog because it's all really cool. Very synthwave, very much. It sounds like it is the soundtrack of your life if you were a kid in the 80s. Everything they do.
The way I described them to people was, what if Tears for Fears got together with John Carpenter, smoked a lot of pot, and then decided to write a soundtrack to every arcade that ever existed? That's basically what I thought it would sound. In fact, they have John Carpenter's voice on parts of the album because he's a fan and he contributed some stuff too.
That's great.
A friend of mine introduced me to them. He's like, I just know you're going to dig this. And then that earworm just never left. And it's like, go to. I listen to them at least once a day, every day.
Yeah, the song in the playlist is Revel in Your Time. Everything I've listened to from Gunship, I love. Every song. It's just awesome.
Yeah.
So
this is one of those bands where you go, where the hell was I? How come I didn't hear about this?
Yeah.
You're pissed that it's existed for a period of time before you heard of them.
Yeah, they've been around for about 10, 13 years, something like that.
Yeah, and that pisses me off because that's time wasted. Why weren't they in my life before this?
Well, I'm sure I've played them for you before, but we were both pretty messed up at the time, I'm sure.
That's true. For those who are not in the know, when we have our Patreon hangouts with the Grindhead, or sometimes we get together with him in private, he'll introduce us to songs, and then he'll just get into a whole thing of, you think that's cool? Check this out. And we'll go through like half an hour of just listening to his favorite playlist.
I think it was like 3 a.m. the last time we did one.
You were at Joe Fest, weren't you?
One of them, yeah. We were up 3 in the morning, yeah.
Yeah, always a fun time. And again, see you. 2 Mega Therion. Greek for the Great Beast. Like another very super serious band, very dark death metal. I mean, that's what it is. Yeah. And so they like that whole genre of, looking into the things from Revelation, end times, prophecies, and pretty much anything dealing with the darker aspects of humanity. Very over the top sound. Their lyrics are very much heavy-handed.
They don't like Jesus very much.
No, not at all. Or any deity, I don't think, that doesn't have leather wings. Right. So, what brought you to Sinister?
So they had 2 albums that came out before this one, and I'd heard bits and bobs, and I was like, this is good. This is really good. It didn't take my breath away, but I was like, this is really good. And I'll listen to this, forever, but this is not like epoch making. And then this album came out, and it was like, okay, this is everything that European death metal in the mid 90s needed to be. And
angsty.
I don't know that I'd call it angsty. They weren't whining about it. They're just writing really solid music that just happened to have those horror lyrics. And that's what I would call it. I would call these like religious horror lyrics because they're taking a fantasy aspect of religion and they're doing this thing just like a horror, like Cannibal Corpse will talk about zombies ripping your face off. In other words, the stuff that they're talking about, it's not going to happen. And they don't really believe that there's an actual being called Satan. They're using it to tell a story, to make a point. But the whole album has the best guitar tone, the best drums, perfect vocals, just enough creepiness. Perfect. It's all filler, no kill, or all killer, no filler. Sorry, sorry. I've been doing this for a while. Arguably the most perfect death metal record of its era. Pre 1990, there's some other ones, in post 2000, I could say there's some other ones, but I think in the 90s, I don't think it gets from front to back, note for note, better than this. So much so that I have a tattoo of the album cover right here.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Like that. Like this is one of my favorite records, period, and certainly one of my top 3 of death metal of all time.
They are definitely a great example of the genre. A little heavy for my taste. I tend for things that are a little bit more uplifting. But it was an experience going through some of these. Sinister. So one to check out. And then again, I love your palate cleansers. It's like, whoa, that was heavy. My face has been ripped off. Let's do some Vince DiCola montage. This man knew how to write a montage. But
yes, he did.
I loved his stuff in Transformers, Rocky IV. He's done several other films. If you've had a soundtrack that you enjoyed, he probably had his hand in it somewhere as either the composer or arranger. So we all know there's a great love for Transformers the movie from our time growing up. And the soundtrack was definitely a huge part of that.
Oh yeah.
Why this particular song?
So I love the entire soundtrack, and I love the movie. I saw it in the theater. I own several copies of the soundtrack in different formats. I own the movie in several different formats as well. Like, this is probably my favorite movie. Even above Lethal Weapon, even though I watch Lethal Weapon more often. The soundtrack only has 2 or 3 pieces of Vince DiCola score on it. And I think that this one is the best example of what he was doing for the rest of the film. Okay. So I always point this one out. And also, by the time I got my hands on this, I didn't get a copy of this in any format until I got it on cassette in 1990. It was the day after Christmas in 1990. I just happened to see it on the shelf. Couldn't find it anywhere else, and they just happened to have it sitting there.
Awesome.
4 years later. Grabbed it, and I just soaked it in. Like, every last thing on that record. Every song's a gem. But the Vince DiCola stuff brought me back. I could see the movie. And, it wasn't long after that I was starting to get into playing drums. And the easiest way for me to practice rudiments and learning things and timing was to play along to tapes. And I would create mixtapes of everything from, Metallica, Queen, Napalm. I'd put some of this on there. I'd put John Williams scores on there. Anything I could to add polyrhythms to things and learn how to play. This was one of my favorite things to play because it makes you go all over the kit. You can have lots of fun with it. And I bonded with the film a second time because of that. And then I remember the movie comes back out on VHS and later DVD in like 98. And then I saw it again for the first time, like Cornflakes, right? And ever since then, it's like, I will not be without a copy of this movie and within arm's reach if I can help.
Well, I'm glad you picked this particular track too, because, listening to it, I don't think it gets enough play. But that Autobot Decepticon battle, I mean, that sets the mood that's the best part of the movie, basically. I mean, arguably, that whole opening sequence all the way up until Optimus Prime, spoiler alert, but that whole that whole battle, and this is playing throughout that whole thing. So when I was listening to it again, I was just reliving the movie, as I was driving, and I was like, I don't listen to this enough. So
Yeah.
totally
And that's something with when we talked with Michael French, he kind of reminded me of is the fact that some of these great movies you could find a soundtrack that had most of the songs, but trying to find the
Not all
actual
of 'em.
score is really tough sometimes if they've
Like, I
even put it out
remember-
at all.
Yeah, I remember like thinking that I was in a different dimension when I found the Temple of Doom score on
Yeah.
cassette.
Mhm.
You know, and I was like, whoa! And that score on its own,
Powerful.
oh, so much of stuff like that. And I listened to so many scores alongside the rock and metal stuff I was into. Like I felt they were inseparable forms of music. They were just choosing different instrumentation. So I look at it all as one big beast. You know, Gunship, Tears and Fears, Disrupt, Vince DiCola, John Williams, Napalm, Queen. It's all drinking from the same trough. They're just
Yeah.
spitting it into different buckets.
And with Vince DiCola, especially, I love putting on the headphones and just letting the sound just wash over me. I love that kind of feeling. And this song, though it was written for a specific point in the film, you know, talking about the Autobot Decepticon battle, it really, to me, encapsulates the entire history of the battle between these two factions from Cybertron.
Oh,
I mean, you kind of feel that, you know, this is something that's been going on for a long time, and we're just seeing a glimpse of it in the film, you know. So for those who don't know, I did a little research, and according to people smarter than me, this is the essence of the problem of the Autobots and Decepticons. So millions of years ago, a race of alien robots called the Quintessons created the Transformers to mine. Thank you, Quintessons. They created the Transformers to mine Cybertron for resources and a military force to protect the mines. And they're the products that came out of that and Cybertron itself. One of these robots broke free of its programming, rebelled against the other robots, and drove the Quintessons.
Yeah,
I'll get it right eventually. I know I'll get yelled at by Ken from Toy Connections for that.
Guilty or innocent.
Yes,
Innocent.
drove them from the world. Civilization, you know,
Innocent.
So the Transformers kind of had a golden age, but then they had an energy crisis, and this led to a war between the manufacturing robots, the Autobots, and the military, which were the Decepticons, and that just continued on and went off planet. So very interesting. Great. There's a lot of lore here. I'm not a huge Transformers guy. I don't collect Transformers, but I love the story, and the music ties in with that really well. So, that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
And then moving on to some other classic stuff. Anthrax, considered one of the big four from that 80s thrash metal. You had Metallica, you had Megadeth, Slayer, and Anthrax. Those were the ones that everybody had a T-shirt and everybody went to the concerts, you know. So, but this was a kind of a different sound compared to some of their earlier stuff. They were very humorous. They enjoy dark humor. They enjoy, you know, goofy references. Hell, they even showed up on Married with Children one time. You know, so with this, they started. They were growing up. It was a more mature sound for the entire album. This particular song, "Time," which I always get confused with the other song that has "Time" in the title on the same album, but it's good.
Yeah, it really sets the stage. It's the title. It's more or less the title track, and it opens the album up. And I heard this, I was like, "Damn, this is heavy." And Joey's vocals, I don't think have ever sounded better before or since. Although I am more of a fan of the guy that came after him and kind of really solidified the more mature Anthrax into place, John Bush. But this, this to be the last album he was going to perform on for another 10 plus years, this was a good way to go out. And this particular song just cruises, man. it's wonderful. I love Anthrax. I hold them in very high regard, probably higher regard than even Metallica or Megadeth or Slayer, just because they tend to hit my buttons more often, even though I love all those other bands for different reasons. If someone said you have to play one of the big four right now, I'd say, well, let me get an Anthrax record, because I'm just more in tune with that stuff too. But it's just my favorite Anthrax song. So
Cool. Enough said.
Yeah.
Moving right along. Another one I had never heard of, whose name I am going to butcher because I cannot pronounce Dutch names very well.
And Nick von Giersbjergen.
Gesundheit. Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty gal, beautiful sound.
Oh my
liked her
God.
videos. Nice.
Yeah,
Just-
pleasantly surprised. I heard
Yeah.
this. It was just beautiful. That's all I could say. It's just I was filled with light listening to her sing. So
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful, wonderful song.
Yeah, like your
Yeah,
copy here says, like we all in the metal scene learned of her originally when she was in this doom band called The Gathering, and she was amazing in that. And she had guest vocaled on a bunch of stuff for like Devin Townsend's Strappy Young Lad, which was one of his projects. Napalm Death, she did a bunch of stuff with, which is just haunting and great. And when I found out she had solo stuff as well, I was like, well, I got to hear this. And I like everything I've heard of hers, but this song just slices me right open and pours light in every time.
Just beautiful.
And if I'm
She has a
having
very-
a bad
yeah.
day, this just, whoop, you know.
very positive. The idea of sound as light that definitely fits the sound from this. Feel Alive is the name of the song, and she's got some pipes on her. She can sing.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I could totally see her doing some stuff that's more vocally aggressive and really belting it out, because she's
But
definitely got the music, the sound.
What's funny about you saying that is that her voice tends to be like this, even when she's singing with heavier bands, but she has
Interesting.
more of an ethereal quality to the notation she uses, so it feels otherworldly. Like there's just something to it, man. Like if I ever come back to do a follow-up, I'll put a Napalm song on that has her in it, and you'll be like, what? Like when you hear that, you're gonna go, was that? I'm like, yeah, and what? And you'd be like, holy
Indeed.
shit. Really great stuff. Nothing she's recorded I can't recommend.
We love those
good.
crazy Dutchies, we not just the chasing 80s variety. We like these some of these singers too.
Correct.
So good stuff. And back around to some much darker affair. Morbid Angel, Dominate. You just, whew. Wow.
Yeah. Where do I begin?
Exactly.
This was Morbid Angel's fourth full length, sixth if you count the extended demo they recorded back in like '89, but I don't. And they always would label their albums to this day like by letters of the alphabet. So this was D. So you had A, B, C, D. And although I like the album that precedes this as a whole far better than I like Domination, the song Dominate to me is everything that Morbid Angel at its peak represents. A guitar tone that sounds like lava melting off of a rock. Drums that sound pummeling like machinery that are built out of muscle and bone. Vocals that sound like lions ready to rip the nearest gladiator's head off. Rumbling.
When you talk about blast beats, these guys definitely are good examples of guys who know how to use blast beats. No doubt.
Pete the Feet Sandoval, man. We call him the Commando because he plays these things in combat boots. And we're like, what the fuck's wrong with you, Pete? Like it's crazy.
Have you had a chance to jam with these guys?
We've played a few shows with them, and I've met them a bunch of times. The tattoo on my right calf is from the U.S. tour, the first leg of their U.S. tour for their third record called Covenant. and it's a demon / gargoyle doing some nefarious stuff with a cross, and
As they do.
yes. And I remember showing this to Trey, the guitar player, and he nearly collapsed from gratitude. He was so happy. Like, these guys are really into what they're doing, and they know that aside from the initial, death metal-y stuff, when they go off the beaten path with some of their stuff, they lose a lot of fans. When you see someone into their stuff enough that you have a tattoo, they're like, oh shit. And this is another band like Napalm that has had a rotating, revolving door of members, although they do still have one original member left. But they've had their different eras, and they're really, really cool. But there's just something immediate and beautiful, like brutally beautiful, about what Morbid Angel represents, especially on this record. And plus, after looking at the rest of the playlist, I said, well, I'm not going to let them get off that easy. and the runner-up was by a band called Hate Eternal, which is from a former member of this band, his first album. And I said, y'all ain't ready for that yet. It was like a Back to the Future moment for sure. I'm like, I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet.
But your kids gonna love it.
Yeah. So I went with the, I basically said, I'll give them the light beer of this type of death metal, and we'll get into the lager next time. You need to at least,
yes. So Morbid Angel is widely considered one of the most influential bands in the genre, and important in the transition from death metal to death metal from thrash metal. I mean, so there was an evolution of sound, and they were
yes,
they spearheaded it, if nothing better.
Absolutely.
One of the first bands to incorporate guttural vocals, as well as the up-tempo blast beats we talked about. Multiple tempo changes and a very dark tone to the entire album. They do not suffer fools or weaklings.
I was going to say, it says right there, weak aside, no place for us. Our struggle leaves behind. Our Lord won't tolerate those whom through attrition fall. We must dominate.
Never mind the fact that they also feature, and he's the primary songwriter, he also is one of the last great lead guitar virtuosos of our generation. Still doing it. Never stopped playing leads. Like, basically, I'd put him right up there with Dimebag, or either of the guys from like Lamb of God. Any of the great lead guitar players. Like, Trey's right up there.
Weak aside, though, is something I want to start using in my daily life. Weak aside.
That's right. We must dominate.
Hey, as long as you take something away from this that's useful to your life, that's all that matters to me, man.
I'm going to use it at Walmart tomorrow. Yeah.
Well, this is definitely the most emotional roller coaster of any of the playlists we've done. We laughed, we cried, definitely. Our faces were melted. It was and
then put back together by a beautiful angel. Yes.
Yes.
And then melted off again.
You're right. And that was kind of the idea. It was like I debated on which song to end with, but I thought, no, I'm not going to let them off that easy. So I let you get completely clean. You had a nice long shower, and just as your hair's starting to dry, Morbid Angel comes in and just rips your face off.
Yep.
Oh, it was. It was a pleasure. There were some really good surprises there. Gunship, just perfect. I mean, just amazing.
So really glad. Yeah, that definitely. I'm glad for the process that we've created for the Infinite playlist. As I received a playlist from our guest, I'll put it together. I'll start looking up the songs to put together for the links so that people can link to the music and listen to it. Then I'll listen to the playlist. Then I'll send it to Will, and he'll listen to the playlist. And then we put together the trivia to go with it. Yeah. So, whew. Yeah,
I won't be getting any grindcore tattoos anytime soon, but I do appreciate your love for the music.
Yes.
And you sharing that with us means a lot to me. So,
absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. And
this was fun.
Yeah. And I do think that you guys should start bringing some people back people that are like really into it, because the deeper you dig into an archive, the more interesting the choices could be.
That is true.
so,
Funny you
like-
should say that. Ryan Laserpants has said that he would like to come back. We're working on that. Jeremy Jernigan will be joining us in the very near future. The Helidopers are going to be coming back at some point after PowerCon. They're a little busy right now. So we'll do some alumni and get some new playlists from those guys. That'll be fun. But we're always open to new playlists from other folks, whether it be our subscribers or friends from the interwebs. So send those playlists in. Oh, yeah.
GeForce Racing. I think I've come up with a top 10 that explores most of my tastes. Wonderful.
Very cool.
Wait to get into that.
When you sit and look at it, you're going to go, because you'll wish there was 15 or 20.
Yeah.
And then you'd fill, and I did. I filled out 20. And I said, shit, I can't do this.
We kind of try to keep it to a 45 to hour format, and that's why we limit it. Otherwise, we'd be here all night, which would be fun.
Forget
but,
it.
you know,
and
people
also
got to have
Mr.
dinner.
Wonderful has joined us.
Hey, good to see Travis.
Soon, so and after PowerCon, man, I hope wish you all the most success over at PowerCon. He's going to be representing Hexastacks. Right?
So right? Yes, he will. Hexastacks, indeed.
Yeah.
If you go to my channel page and you go to the About section, my email is there. Just email me your
Dean.
Playlist and we'll work something out. Hey, Dean.
He just woke up at 7:21.
Oh, wow.
Good morning. And go
Dean, you are going to really enjoy this replay, I think.
That'll be cool.
I really do.
Yeah. So looking forward to everybody's playlists. We'll schedule as soon as we get those in, and this is a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun with this show.
GeForce is already up to 5 bands for round 2, so great. That's playing ahead.
Nice.
I can't wait, man.
Very cool. Well, any parting shots before we wander off? I do not use Apple Music. I don't like Apple products. I tend to just use YouTube Music or what else do I use? Sometimes I'll use. I used to use when I had a Prime subscription. I used to use the Prime Music too.
Used to use Instagram back in the day. You followed Jim on Instagram, right? That's the best way to get the playlist.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
You could do that too. Yeah,
and I will say that one little tiny barb, because I think a lot of people, based upon your review, are going to go after Gunship. Little fun fact: I don't know if it's on YouTube, but it's definitely on Spotify. They have the instrumental versions of all the songs they've ever recorded.
Nice.
Believe it or not, devoid of the vocal melody, the songs take on a different kind of a vibe. So if you look for something to play in the background while you're doing clerical work for, like, say, at your job, Will, or if you're doing editing or shooting or photography like that, that'll bring the room nice down and toasty and cool. So cool. I really, as strongly as I recommend the band, the instrumentals on top of that,
yeah, I do love me a good instrumental.
Oh, that's good.
So
tomorrow morning at work, I have to throw out a bunch of stuff, so I'm gonna put on some Napalm Death and just wreck everything.
Hey, if you would are seriously thinking about doing that, there is a specific album I think you would dig. It's called Fear, Emptiness, Despair. It's a bit more groovy, but it's still heavy and a bit angry, but it's groovier.
I'm getting there really early tomorrow morning, and I'm gonna go. It's either going out or going out. It's
now see, I would recommend the Vince DiCola Rocky IV training montage if you're going to be doing a lot of work. Get the montage going. You get all the work done in what, like 45
but
seconds.
Here's the thing.
Great.
The problem with that is if he's trying to like have his headphones be in his own world, what's going
to
happen?
I'm blasting that music. I'm just
you would. The thing is, you would finish the trash and then just stand at the dock and go, Drago!
I'm going to. I'm rearranging my whole, basically the whole warehouse at my shop. So I have to. We're going to change up everything. So, a lot of stuff has to go, and I'm pumped to just wreck stuff tomorrow.
Well, Wilhelm, you got anything on your channel that's going to be coming up? Any reviews? Any 118 stuff we can look forward to?
If I could get to it, because work just sucks, and it just work. It just sucks all of my time. It doesn't necessarily suck, but I got some 118 crap coming in.
Cool.
And trying to get videos done on that. I got like these little dudes here and
Nice.
some other stuff. But there is some 1/18 scale news. So this Sunday at 3:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, if anyone's available, come join me. We don't have a guest I lined up as I know, but we do have a lot to talk about because there is some poppin' 1/18 scale news already happening this week. So we'll have
Very
some
cool.
stuff to talk about, and I'd like to see you guys there. Come join the 1/18.
Nice.
Courtesy
Grindhead, I know
Grindhead
you've
Jim.
been expanding beyond the toy grinds and getting back into the groove again. You got anything on the horizon for us?
I have a few reviews that are coming and a couple restorations as well. On the short list I'm restoring the Crystal Castle. I have all the parts. They're found. I got to get
Nice.
that done. I won't be doing any painting for the initial restoration, but I wanted to show the parts, kind of show where I'm looking to do. Kind of the part one. I also have a restoration of the Nylent Freedom Force helicopter. It's staring me in the face right there. And he's like, plastic weld my gun back together and clean me up, you bastard. So I'm going to
We have been waiting to see an update on that since you acquired it. So that'll be cool.
So have we. So have we. Okay?
The royal we.
And,
yes.
Yes. And now that I'm collecting 1/18th in earnest, it's like, well, crap, I have to do it now. Plus,
Great.
It takes up less space if it's not in the box. So
I did have a viewer call or write me about and grind Largo. I know for sure, but he said there is a 1/18 scale line of Doctor Who figures he wanted to talk about.
There is.
I didn't know they existed, so that might not be next week, but that might be an upcoming show.
I collect mostly the 5-inch, but I do have a couple of the 1/18 scale, and I can put those on the shelf, and we can talk about them if you like.
Yeah, sure. Yep. So I'll get back to him, but it may not be this weekend. But yeah, we'll have plenty to talk about. And if I can't make videos for the things that I have, we could just do a toy cam, and I could show them live. So that'll be fun too.
That'll be cool. I am working on another episode of the Adventure Team 76. I've got a new land adventurer that I want to introduce, but I've got stuff to do to get that produced. So that's on my to-do list along with all the other good stuff we're working on, as well as AF3. We'll have some more Action Force stuff coming down the pipe. So all I got to say, my friend, is if love and grind is wrong, I don't want to be right. This has been fun, Jim.
Grind.
Ooh, and along those lines, we've got G-Force is checking out some Twisted Metal. Now that, as far as the Twisted Metal video game, I would love to see some toys. I don't think anybody's done that right yet.
Badass vehicles, yeah.
If they did, if they took,
in 1/18 scale, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
Honestly, I would just say just Hot Wheels or Matchbox.
That'd be fun too.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I need a tasty beverage and to put some food in my belly. I needed it to get in my belly. Any final thoughts for our friends and neighbors?
No, I just appreciate the hell out of you guys. I love this show. It was a pleasure to be here.
I'm glad you
grind.
Yes.
That's all I know how to do. I'm sorry. I'm a one-trick pony, people.
That's it. We got him all spun up now. But you kids have a crazy evening. I will try to do the same. I've got in-laws and outlaws I need to go glad hand and be nice to. So the moment you've all been waiting for. Yes, we will watch Largo get his grind on here. Good night.